My name is Serena Hartwell. I was 38 years old when one message, sent the night before Mother's Day, made me realize something painful. In my family, being useful was never the same as being loved. It started with something so normal that I almost missed the moment everything changed. I was standing in my kitchen late that evening, checking the final details for the next morning. I made sure the brunch reservation was confirmed, the flowers were scheduled for delivery, and the photographer had the right time. Everything was already arranged. Everything was already paid for. And as usual, everything was under my name, because whenever my family wanted things to look perfect and effortless, I was the one handling it behind the scenes. Then my phone lit up with a message in the family group chat. My mother tagged me and wrote, "Stay home tomorrow. Don't come. We're tired of your side of the family." For a few seconds, I just stared at the screen, not because I misunderstood it, but because there was no softer meaning hidden inside those words. My husband and my children were not considered family to them. To my mother, they were just extra people she didn't want ruin perfect her Mother's Day pictures. A few seconds later, my father reacted to the message with a thumbs up. Then my sister added a laughing emoji. I slowly typed back, "So that's what we are to you." No one answered. They simply continued chatting over my message, joking about dresses, flowers, brunch plans, and the summer vacation they were already planning together, acting as if they hadn't just told me of my family to disappear. And that was the exact moment something inside me became completely calm. I didn't cry. I didn't beg for an explanation. Instead, I placed my phone down on the kitchen counter, opened my email, then opened my banking app. One by one, I looked through every reservation, every payment, and every count connected to that weekend. Because the truth was simple. They thought I would still show up. They thought I would still pay for everything. They thought I would accept the insult quietly because that was what I had always done before. But this time was different. 10 minutes later, the group chat suddenly exploded with notifications. At 11:09 p.m., my sister tagged me. At 11:11 p.m., my mother tagged me. At 11:15 p.m., my father tagged me. Message after message kept coming in. That was when they finally realized the woman they told to stay home was also the only reason Mother's Day was happening at all. Before I explain what disappeared that night, why panic spread through the family before midnight, and how one cruel message exposed years of disrespect, you need to understand the kind of family I came from. I grew up in Charleston in a home where appearances mattered more than honesty. My mother, Denise Langford, cared deeply about how our family looked to other people. The lawn had to be perfectly trimmed before the neighbors noticed. Christmas cards had to look elegant. At church events, she wanted everyone saying, "Denise always does everything beautifully." My father, Russell Langford, was quieter, but he protected that image just as much by never standing up to her. If my mother said something cruel, he called it stress. If my sister, Chelsea, caused problems, he called it a rough phase. If I got hurt, he called me too sensitive. Chelsea Langford was the daughter everyone noticed first. She had the bright smile, perfect hair, effortless confidence, and the kind of personality that made every room feel brighter the moment she walked in. And growing up, I learned very quickly that Chelsea was the star of the family story. I was simply the person working behind the curtain to keep the story running smoothly. My mother loved that kind of attention. Chelsea was the daughter she proudly posted about online. Chelsea was the one she took shopping before family parties. Chelsea was praised just for showing up even when someone else had done all the work to make the event happen. I was different. I was the practical one, the calm one, the one who remembered birthdays, cleaned the kitchen after everyone left, handled the details, and noticed problems before they became embarrassing. When I was 12, I learned how to cook dinner because my mother was tired and Chelsea had dance practice. When I was 14, I learned how to calm my father down whenever bills stressed him out. When I was 16, I learned that saying, "I need help too," only made everyone stare at me like I had broken some unspoken rule. Chelsea received comfort. I received expectations. If Chelsea cried, everyone rushed to support her. If I cried, my mother would say, "Serena, you're stronger than that." For years, I thought that was a compliment. I believed being strong meant I was trusted. I believed being dependable meant I mattered more. But looking back now, I understand the truth. Strong was just the word they used whenever they wanted me to accept less. When Chelsea turned 16, my parents helped her buy a used convertible because, according to my mother, she needed freedom and confidence. As when I turned 16, I got a bus pass and a lecture about how independence builds character. If Chelsea forgot her responsibilities, my mother said she was young. If I made one mistake, I got a long speech about maturity. Everything in our house had two different rules. One protected Chelsea, the other trained me to quietly sacrifice. Mother's Day was always the clearest example of that. My mother treated it like a royal holiday. She expected flowers, gifts, brunch reservations, photos, cards, and endless praise. But she never seemed interested in the kind of love that came without an audience. When I was 17, I used money from my weekend job to bake her a lemon cake from scratch, because she once mentioned that lemon desserts reminded her of her childhood. I stayed up late making it. I cleaned the kitchen afterward. The next morning, I placed the cake carefully on the counter beside a handmade card. My mother smiled at it for maybe 2 seconds. Then she turned toward Chelsea because Chelsea had bought her a scarf from a small boutique downtown. My mother held up that scarf like it was priceless. My cake sat untouched until the frosting began to dry. That moment explained my childhood perfectly. My work was useful. Chelsea's gestures were treasured. The hardest part was that nobody ever said it directly. Nobody sat me down and admitted, "Serena, your role in this family is to make life easier for everyone else." They simply acted like it was true until eventually I believed it too. If my mother needed groceries picked up, she called me. If my father needed help understanding a bill, he called me. If Chelsea had another emergency, everyone expected me to solve it instead of asking why the same emergencies kept happening. And I did, again and again, because I thought that was what love looked like. I believed that if I stayed patient enough, gave enough, forgave enough, and proved myself enough, one day my family would finally look at me with the same warmth if they gave Chelsea, just for existing. But that day never came. Instead, the older I got, the more they depended on me while appreciating me less. By the time I finally moved out, I had already been trained to confuse being needed with being loved. That mistake followed me for years, and it almost damaged the family I built for myself. When I married Cole Hartwell, I honestly believed things would finally change. I was 30 years old. I had a stable job, paid my own bills, and lived in a peaceful home where nobody's mood controlled the entire atmosphere. Cole was patient in a way that felt unfamiliar to me. He didn't raise his voice during arguments. He didn't use guilt to get his way. He noticed small things and remembered them. The first time my mother called during dinner, and I immediately stood up to answer, he watched quietly. After I hung up, he asked gently, "Did she call to ask how you're doing, or did she call because she needed something?" I defended her automatically. That was my reflex. I said she was overwhelmed. I said family helps family. I said he didn't fully understand our family dynamic yet. Cole didn't argue. He only said, "I understand more than you think." And he was right. My mother rarely called without wanting something. My father usually contacted me only when he had a problem he wanted fixed, without admitting he needed help. Chelsea came with endless emergencies. A late car payment, trouble paying rent, a business expense, credit card debt. Another mistake she cold called bad luck. and somehow everyone looked at me like I was the emergency fund they never had to appreciate. When our daughter's Maya was born, I thought becoming a mother might finally change the way my own mother saw me. I thought maybe she would understand me differently. Instead, she visited the hospital, took a few pictures, kissed Maya on the forehead, and then stepped into the hallway because Chelsea was upset about an argument with her boyfriend. I still remember lying there exhausted, in pain, holding my newborn daughter while listening to my mother comfort Chelsea with a softness she had never shown me. Even then, I told myself not to overreact. I told myself, at least she came. That was how I survived my family. I lowered my standards, then thanked them for barely reaching them. When our son Ethan was born, the pattern became even more obvious. My mother arrived late. My father blamed traffic. Chelsea sent a message about how busy she was and somehow turned the conversation about my son's birth into a complaint about her own stressful week. Still, I kept trying. I invited them to birthdays. I sent photos. I made sure Maya and Ethan knew their grandparents and aunt, because I wanted my children to have the loving family I had always wished for. But my mother never treated them like they truly belonged. Maya was too sensitive. Ethan was too loud. Cole was too quiet. Our schedule was inconvenient. Our presence was tolerated, not welcomed. At family dinners, Chelsea's stories dominated the table while my children were corrected for behaving like normal kids. If Maya asked a question during adult conversation, my mother gave me that tight smile that silently meant, control your child. If Ethan laughed too loudly, my father sighed as if we had brought chaos into a quiet museum. Meanwhile, Chelsea could arrive late, interrupt everyone, spill wine, complain endlessly about her clients, and somehow still be treated like the most important person in the room. What made everything even worse was that I was still paying for the same family that quietly pushed us aside. I covered my mother's credit card bills whenever she overspent on clothes, decorations, or expensive hosting ideas she claimed were necessary. I paid overdue HOA fees for my parents after my father blamed a billing mistake. I helped pay for advertising on Chelsea's real estate listings because she promised that one successful month would finally help her get ahead. I paid deposits for family dinners, holiday rentals, birthdays, and weekend trips that were usually planned without me and explained to me afterward. And that year, Mother's Day was supposed to be especially important. My mother wanted a beautiful waterfront brunch in Charleston. She wanted something elegant enough for photographs, but casual enough to pretend she was not trying too hard. She wanted fresh flowers on every table. She wanted a photographer for family portraits. She's wanted everyone dressed in matching color tones. She wanted the reservation timed perfectly so the sunlight near the water would look beautiful in photos. For weeks, she talked about the event like she was planning a magazine shoot. She never directly asked whether I could afford any of it. She simply kept talking about the details until, like always, I stepped in. I booked the private dining room. I paid the deposit. I upgraded the flower arrangements. After Chelsea complained, the standard ones looked cheap. I hired the photographer because my mother said she wanted one beautiful family picture for once. I even paid the deposit for a vacation rental on Hilton Head Island because my mother kept hinting in the family group chat that this summer might be the last chance for everyone to spend time together before life became too busy. Cole watched me handle all of it with a sadness that made me uncomfortable. He never ordered me to stop. Instead, one night after the kids were asleep, he quietly said, "Add it all up." So I did. I sat at the dining table with my laptop and started calculating every transfer, every payment, every small favor, every emergency, and every family expense from the last year. When I finished, the number on the screen made my stomach tighten. More than $27,000. I stared at it until the numbers blurred together. And somehow, even after seeing that, I still move forward with Mother's Day plans because some part of me still hoped that if everything looked beautiful enough, my mother might finally look at me and see love instead of usefulness. But the night before Mother's Day, she finally made her feelings clear. She saw my husband and children as my side of the family. Something separate, something unwanted, something that should stay home after my money had already done its job. After reading her message, the kitchen became painfully quiet, not peaceful, not calm. The kind of silence that fills a room after something breaks, and nobody knows how to clean up the pieces. Cole picked up my phone and read the message twice. I watched his expression change, not into anger exactly, but into the kind of stillness people get when they finally stop denying the truth. Then he gently placed my phone back on the counter and said, "If they don't want us there, they don't get to use you to make tomorrow beautiful." That sentence hit me harder than anything else that night. Because for years, I had separated the insult from the obligation. They could hurt me, and I would still help. They could ignore my children, and I would still pay. They could treat Cole like an outsider, and I would still arrive smilingly because keeping the peace had somehow become my responsibility. But Cole's words cut through all of that. If they didn't want us there, then why was my name attached to every reservation? Why was my credit card securing the brunch? Why was my money paying for the flowers, the photographer, and the vacation my mother was already joking about, as if I had not just been erased from it? I sat down at the kitchen island and opened my laptop. What surprised me most was that my hands were completely steady. I expected tears. I expected guilt. I expected the familiar panic that always came whenever I thought about disappointing my family. But this time, there was only clarity. First, I opened the reservation portal for the waterfront restaurant. The private dining room for Mother's Day was booked under my name, and my credit card was attached to the remaining balance. I looked at the special requests my mother had asked me to add: window seating preferred, soft floral decorations, space for family photos, mimosa bar. I could almost hear her voice saying it all needed to feel effortless. That word nearly made me laugh. Because in my family, effortless had always meant my effort, hidden carefully enough for everyone else to enjoy the results. I moved the cursor to the cancel button. A confirmation window appeared on the screen asking, "Are you sure?" For the first time in a very long time, I was completely sure. I clicked cancel. Then I opened the florist invoice. The upgraded flower arrangements Chelsea had called classier were scheduled to arrive at the restaurant the next morning. I canceled those too. Next came the photographer. That one hurt for a moment. Because before everything fell apart, I had imagined Maya wearing her pale blue dress, Ethan smiling with his crooked little grin, Cole standing beside me. All of us finally included in a family picture that didn't make us feel like outsiders. Then I remembered my mother's message. "We're tired of your side of the family." The pain disappeared instantly. I canceled the photography session and removed my card from the account. After that, I opened the vacation rental booking for Hilton Head Island. For weeks, my mother had bragged in the group chat about how perfect the beach house would be for summer. She kept talking about family time, relaxing together, and making memories before everyone became too busy with life. The deposit had come from me. The account was under my email because my mother claimed she hated dealing with booking websites. I canceled the reservation hold. Part of the deposit was non-refundable, and for once, I didn't care. Losing that money cost far less than continuing to pay for a place in a family that didn't truly want mine. Then I moved on to the regular monthly payments. My mother's credit card autopay was first. She had called it temporary 6 months earlier. I removed my checking account information. Next were my parents' HOA fees. My father had promised in March that he would take over the payments again. It was now May. I canceled the skilled transfer. Then I logged into the marketing platform Chelsea used for her real estate listings. My card was still connected because she had begged me to cover just one campaign during a slow month. That slow month had quietly turned into a permanent arrangement. I deleted my payment method. With every click, it stopped feeling like revenge. It felt more like removing a weight I had been carrying for years. While I worked, my phone kept lighting up nonstop, but not with apologies, not with concern. The family group chat continued like nothing had happened. Chelsea was discussing what outfit she planned to wear. My mother was asking whether cream or pale green looked better in photographs. Nobody noticed yet that the entire day they were planning was quietly disappearing piece by piece. My father made a joke in the group chat about needing to look cheerful because Mother's Day was more exhausting than tax season. They were completely comfortable, and somehow, that was the part that finally made me feel cold inside. They had insulted me, insulted my husband, dismissed my children, and then calmly moved on with their evening because they truly believed I would absorb the hurt the way I always had. They believed I would calm down. They believed I would return to helping once my feelings passed. They believed the machine would keep running because it always had before. At 10:51 p.m., the first confirmation email arrived. The Waterfront restaurant informed everyone that the Mother's Day reservations had been canceled by the account holder. At 10:54 p.m., the photographer sent a cancellation notice. At 10:57 p.m., the vacation rental confirmed the booking hold had been released. I didn't send screenshots. I didn't announce what I had done. I simply turned my phone face down and sat quietly beside Cole. And for the first time in my life, I allowed my family to experience the consequences of their own behavior without rushing in to protect them from it. 3 minutes later, the first message appeared. At exactly 11:00 p.m., Chelsea tagged me in the family group chat. Serena, what did you do to the photographer? Before I could even finish reading it, another message appeared. Are you serious right now? Fix it. I stared at the screen, feeling strangely empty, not guilty, not satisfied, not angry, just distant. Like I had already lived through this moment in my head so many times that the real version no longer shocked me. At 11:03 p.m., Chelsea sent another message. Mom is going to be humiliated. Do you even care? That almost made me laugh. Just 10 minutes earlier, my mother had told me not to come to Mother's Day because she was tired of my side of the family. And now suddenly I was supposed to care about humiliation. At 11:11 p.m., my mother finally tagged me. Sweetheart, don't be dramatic. Mother's Day is tomorrow. Sweetheart. That word only appeared when control stopped working, not when I was hurt, not when my children were excluded, not when Cole was treated like an outsider, only when consequences arrived. Then another message came from her. I think you misunderstood what I meant. I looked back at her original text. Stay home tomorrow. Don't come. We're tired of your side of the family. There was nothing confusing about those words. Nothing hidden, nothing unclear. At 11:15 p.m., my father tagged me. Call me right now. Your mother is crying. And there it was. Not, are you okay? Not, that message was wrong. Not, I shouldn't have reacted to it. His concern began exactly where my mother's tears began. Mine had never felt urgent to him. I didn't answer. The group chat moved faster and faster. Chelsea said I was ruining everything over one rude sentence. My mother claimed she only meant that the kids might feel more comfortable staying home, as if my children were the problem, as if excluding us had somehow been an act of kindness instead of rejection. My father said, "This is not how family handles conflict." I almost replied, "No, this is how family reacts when access gets taken away." But I stopped myself. Cole sat beside me at the kitchen island, with one hand resting gently over mine. He didn't tell me to calm down. He didn't tell me to forgive them. He simply said, "You don't have to respond to people who are only sorry," because they lost something. So I stayed silent. And inside that silence, messages started returning, one after another, sharper than I expected. I remembered Maya's 7th birthday, when my mother promised she would arrive early to help decorate, then canceled at the last minute because Chelsea needed company while showing a house to a client. I remembered Ethan's preschool performance when my father said he was too tired to attend, only to post pictures later that evening from a dinner out with Chelsea. I remembered Thanksgiving dinner when I paid for half the catering but still ended up sitting at a folding table near the hallway because my mother claimed the dining room looked better, with fewer chairs. And suddenly, I saw the pattern clearly. Every time my children had been treated like interruptions in a family I was still expected to support financially. Around midnight, my mother started calling. Her name flashed across my screen, disappeared, then appeared again. Then Chelsea called. Then my father, then my mother again. The voicemails came one after another. In the first message, my mother's voice sounded soft and controlled. She said everyone was emotional and that I needed to think about the bigger picture. In the second voicemail, she was crying. In the third, she said, "You're punishing me on the one day meant to honor mothers." That line almost reached the old version of me. The old Serena would have felt cruel. She would have imagined her mother embarrassed in front of relatives and rushed to fix everything before morning. But then I looked down the hallway toward my children's bedrooms, and I asked myself a different question. What kind of mother did I want to be for Maya and Ethan? Did I want Maya growing up watching me buy acceptance from people who insulted her? Did I want Ethan's learning that family could disrespect his father while still expecting his mother to smile politely and keep paying for everything? No. By morning, the entire situation had fallen apart. The restaurant released the private room because no replacement payment had been made. The photographer accepted another last-minute booking. The florist canceled delivery. The Hilton Head Island vacation rental was no longer reserved. My mother's perfect Mother's Day, the one she had spent weeks planning and polishing, collapsed before breakfast. And the truth was, I hadn't destroyed it. It collapsed because it had been built on my willingness to quietly accept disrespect. At around 8:30 that morning, messages from relatives started arriving. One aunt asked if brunch had been moved because my mother was being strangely vague. A cousin asked why the photographer mentioned the family session had been canceled. Another relative texted, "Is everything okay with your mom?" And that was the moment I finally understood what my family truly feared. Not the loss of brunch, not the flowers, not the canceled photos. Exposure. For years, they had hidden their dependence on me behind the image of a warm, generous, successful family. Now that image was starting to crack. And for the first time in my life, I was not rushing to hold it together. By late morning, my mother finally stopped pretending the whole thing was a misunderstanding. By late morning, my mother stopped pretending the situation was a misunderstanding. Her messages became colder, sharper, and strangely more honest, the way panic sometimes forces honesty out of people. A good daughter would never do this to her mother on Mother's Day. A few seconds later, Chelsea added, "You're making everyone look bad." Then my father wrote, "This needs to be handled privately." That message made me stop for a moment. Because suddenly, they cared about privacy. They wanted my pain private, but they wanted my help public. They wanted the brunch public, the family photos public, the beach vacation public, the perfect image of a close family displayed for everyone to admire. But the second the truth threatened that image, privacy suddenly became important. I made myself a cup of coffee, sat down at the dining room table, and opened my laptop again. Cole took Maya and Ethan into the living room and turned on cartoons for them. But Maya came back twice to check on me. The second time, she stood quietly beside my chair and asked, "Mom, are you okay?" I looked at my daughter and realized she had asked me the question my own father still had not. I pulled her into a hug, told her I was okay, and promised we would celebrate our own Mother's Day later. Then I went back to work. I downloaded bank statements. I searched old emails. I opened Venmo, Zelle, credit card confirmations, restaurant receipts, reservation emails, transfer histories, and screenshots I had never expected to use. The more evidence I gathered, the clearer the pattern became. There was the $500 transfer I sent my mother after she claimed the credit card company was pressuring her. There were the HOA payments my father promised to repay next month. There were the advertising charges for Chelsea's Wee's real estate listings, restaurant deposits, holiday contributions, grocery deliveries, pharmacy bills, repair costs, vacation deposits, emergency transfers that stopped looking like emergencies once I realized how often they happened. I added everything carefully because I wasn't trying to create drama, I wanted accuracy. When I finally finished calculating the last 5 years, the total came to $46,870. I stared at the number for a long time, and for the first time, I didn't feel foolish. I felt awake. The money itself had not been stolen from me, but the meaning behind it had been twisted. I gave help as an expression of love. They accepted it as something they were entitled to. I took a picture of the dining table, covered with printed receipts and payment records. Then I posted it in the family group chat. Under the photo, I wrote, "This is what I have paid for this family while you called my husband and children my side of the family." The group chat went completely silent for nearly a full minute. Then my mother replied, "Family helps family." I answered, "Family also respects family." Chelsea immediately jumped in. "You're being manipulative. You're trying to make mom look bad on Mother's Day." Without arguing, I posted screenshots. First, my mother's message, telling me to stay home. Then my father's reaction to it. Then Chelsea's laughing response. Finally, I wrote, "I didn't make anyone look bad. I only showed everyone what was said." My father replied almost instantly, "Serena, call me. This conversation is not appropriate for the group." I answered, "It was appropriate for the group when I was told not to come. It can stay in the group now." That was the moment the rest of the family finally understood what had happened. My aunt asked, "Wait, Serena paid for the brunch?" A cousin wrote, "I thought Denise planned all of this herself." Another relative asked, "Why would you tell her children not to come?" My mother tried desperately to recover. She claimed I was twisting her words. She said she was tired. She said she only wanted a calm day. She claimed young children made events stressful and that I should have understood what she really meant. But every explanation only made things worse. Because what she meant was exactly the problem. Then Chelsea sent a long message accusing me of ruining Mother's Day. Because I couldn't take a joke. I answered with one sentence. A joke is supposed to be funny to the person being laughed at. And then Chelsea made the mistake that ended everything. She wrote, "None of this would have happened if you had just kept the reservation like a normal person." I stared at that message for a long moment, not because it hurt, but because it revealed the truth more clearly than anything else she had said. She didn't say, "None of this would have happened if Mom hadn't hurt you." She didn't say, "None of this would have happened if Dad had defended you." She didn't say, "None of this would have happened if I hadn't laughed." Her real problem was simple. I had stopped paying, so I replied, "Thank you for making it clear. You didn't want me respected, you wanted the reservation." After that, I posted one final message. The Mother's Day brunch was canceled. The photographer was canceled. The florist was canceled. The Hilton Head Island rental was released. My card was removed from Chelsea's marketing account. My checking account was removed from my mother's credit card auto pay. The HOA payments were stopped too. Then my father sent one final message. "Are you really cutting off your own family over one message?" I replied, "No, I'm stepping away after years of being used." The message only made it impossible to keep pretending. A few seconds later, my mother sent 3 crying emojis before writing, "I can't believe my own daughter would embarrass me like this." I stared at those words and felt the last emotional thread finally break. Even now, she still believed the real problem was her embarrassment, not my pain, not my children being excluded, not the disrespect toward my husband. Only her image mattered. So I sent one final message to the group. "I'm done paying to be disrespected. Do not contact me unless you are ready to apologize to Cole, Maya, Ethan, and me." Then I left the group chat. I blocked Chelsea first because I knew her anger would be the loudest. I blocked my mother next because her guilt would be the most practiced. I blocked my father last because his silence had protected this behavior for far too long. For about 2 seconds, the silence afterward felt strange. Then it felt like breathing fresh air after years in a locked room. That afternoon, I did not go to a waterfront brunch. I did not fix the reservations. I did not call the florist. I did not comfort my mother through the consequences of her own actions. Instead, I stayed home. Not because my mother told me to stay away, but because I chose the home where I was actually loved. That evening, Cole made pancakes for dinner because Ethan insisted pancakes tasted better when adults stopped pretending they were only breakfast food. Maya handed me a homemade card covered in crooked little hearts. Inside, she had written, "Thank you for choosing us." I had to sit down after reading it. Children notice far more than adults realize. They notice when their mother becomes quiet after certain phone calls. They notice when people treat them like burdens. They notice when love feels like something their mother has to earn instead of something freely given. And in that moment, I made a decision. My children would not grow up learning that lesson from me anymore. Later that night, Maya quietly asked if I felt sad that Grandma didn't want us there. I told her the truth as gently as I could. "I'm sad," she said it. "But I'm proud that we didn't beg to be loved." That became the real Mother's Day lesson in our house. Love should never require you to erase your own family just to make someone else comfortable. Helping people can be beautiful, but when help exists without respect, it slowly becomes a trap. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are how we teach people that kindness is not permission. For years, I believed being a good daughter meant saying yes, paying quietly, forgiving quickly, and making sure nobody else felt uncomfortable. But all that taught the wrong people was that they could hurt me and still depend on me afterward. The lesson I want Maya and Ethan to carry into their own lives is different. Fans should value your presence more than your usefulness. Family should not require constant sacrifice, performance, or proof of worth. And if someone only appreciates you when you are solving their problems, you are allowed to stop calling that love. A few days later, my mother sent me an email that said, "I'm sorry if you felt hurt." I read it once and closed it. That was not accountability. That was simply an attempt to reopen the door without admitting who slammed it shut in the first place. Maybe one day she will understand what she did. Maybe she never will. But I am no longer building my peace around whether she chooses to be fair. That Mother's Day, I lost the illusion of the family I thought I had. But I gained something far more important. I gained the courage to protect the family I built for myself. And if you have ever been the person everyone depends on, but no one truly sees, remember this. You do not have to keep paying the price of belonging in a place that only welcomes what you provide. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to say enough. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and your children is to stop proving your worth to people who benefited from pretending not to see it. This story is fictional and created for storytelling purposes, but its message is real. Betrayal can hurt deeply, but sometimes it also becomes the moment a person finally chooses peace, self-respect, and a healthier future.